A lot of that comes from age. Okay. My writing has influences, and one of them is what I just referred to it. I was born in '35, and then my formative years were through the Second World War and the Korean War. Although I don't write all war poetry, but I want to just mention that there are those influences, and these things come out. One doesn't sit down to write those things, but every once in a while a line comes to you and you do things with it. So I'd like to read this poem. I get the light right here from my trifocal glasses. From Moscow to Paris with love. Back before zipper body bags, La Grande Armée fled in disorder from Moscow's scorched earth. 40,000 stragglers, many clothed in rags, stripped from their dead. And let it be said, live peasants, winter is not a seasonal choice for retreat from Cossack swords, slicing with ease into greatcoats and neck scarves wrapped twice. Such Corsican arrogance, blind faith in foreign legion serfs, fed by plum liquor tales of nation-state glory that pound a mixture of saltpeter, sulfur, and charcoal into a farm lad's primal brain. And all this callous spittle in vain, as Napoleon, mounted on his small Arab steed so that he appears larger, flees with wagon train for the suites of Versailles, having deigned not to assist or watch his starving army, quaking on its knees, be slashed by sharp steel and sleet. Everywhere, Goya's disasters of war artwork. There, a hussar hugging his loyal steed's ribs, all viscera stripped by wolves. There, with calves too thin to gnaw, a drummer boy in torn breeches. Here, on knees by the burnt church altar, headless torso, its blackened hands rosary, now an icicle. There at the rail crossing, a staff officer plunked half in, half out of ice crater, points black, frostbit finger at Napoleon. Long gone in a warm wagon. Wagon now nearing Paris, with its snug fur rug to console his manicured toes, once so loved by dear Josephine. He puffs war diary tales for his stall-fed scribe. Such exigencies indeed, prior to de rigueur bath, followed by aperitif, dîner flambé, and white-tiled Grand Cru vin. Then, just before dreamland in scented silk sheets, his pet hand-in waistcoat pose at the mirror as his tailor timidly fusses over this vainglory's latest epaulette design for his dear wife, Mary Louise's nod of accord. Meanwhile, outside Moloderno at 30 below, a crow snaps off an officer's brittle black finger, takes flight for the costume Corsican's wagon to deposit a pointed truth on the scribe's vellum. Now, I spent 5 years in Japan, and there's an influence over there from Japanese poetry. And there, and when I came back, I started taking a look at Adelaide Craddock's work. I have some of those Russian dumplings, heavy with garlic. My mouth is seized right up with dryness, so excuse me. I'm trying hard to lip my lips, but not interfere with my reading. So I started following Adelaide Craddock's work. She died in the early 20th century, and she took the Japanese tanka form, and she turned it into her own as an American. Well, Americans always do things like that, don't they? Anyway, I'm impressed with her work. That doesn't mean much to a lot of people, and probably not at all to her, but I do. She just has a way with this. And the importance of it to me is that it's a tanka form, that is 5 lines, but it has a title first, and tankas don't. And it has a very strict rhythm and meter and syllabic count. And the good ones work such that the first line and the last line is in effect a rewriting of the poem in 4 syllables. And so the syllable count goes 2, 4, 6, 8, 2. Well, after that lecture, pardon me, I'm not a lecturer, but anyway, this is the poem form that won the Brebner Prize, which really quite knocked me back, because I have not seen these Craddock style poems in the poetry I've read in English. Now, I may not have read the right books, but really I've been surprised that there is so little of her work. And that put me on to saying, well, I'm going to do some. We'll see where that goes. And I commend, it was Stephen Brockwell, as a matter of fact, who was the final judge on that. And I've appreciated him ever since for being that forthright with a form that's uncommon. All right. I mentioned that I have had a military background, and, well, I didn't, but you did, Carol. And the international work I did. So, again, things come out. You don't set out to write something, but things come out. Off cadence, all ranks, from the front steps to hushed nave and transept, instep, but for the lad in that pine box. Where is Yossarian after Joseph Heller? Crawling through Gaza Strip tank blast debris, he spots a sow's ear. Pray tell, what to make of this? 1993, Bosnian sunset. Cherries scab red in heart-shaped globs of ice hang mute in shell-shocked trees. Last witnesses intoned. Occam's razor. If I was forced to choose between memory and hope, I'd choose the one I could not recall. And if I have time, I have one other, if I have time. It's appropriate. Actually, I set that up. The poem's title is What Time Is It? What time is it? You ask me, and he is hard-pressed to explain the 4 little words you pose in expectation of a simple answer he cannot give without turning to the infinite, which is too a mystery. Time is in here, pointing to his head, buried deep within this brain's universe, somewhere between the sparks of consciousness, sparks themselves brief, but somehow read in string as connected. Such the power of time, a massless thing, if a thing at all. A contradiction that lingers, existing only in man's mind as two options, now and eternity, neither helpful. His now is not your now, and never will be, and eternity has no beginning and no end, so where hides time in all of this? He has to say again, between the sparks of consciousness. Thank you.